Hello, my name is Florian and I welcome you to IT Tech Tips. Since this is the first video of this channel, I'm going to say a few words about it. In this channel, I'm going to cover various topics for my fellow IT professionals. Systems engineers, desktop administrators, server administrators and network engineers. Occasionally, I may cover some cool hardware I personally like and comment on IT-related political stuff going on in the world. Most of the things I will show you in the next few dozen videos will be recorded in a lab environment. If you want to follow the videos with a hands-on experience, I encourage you to set up your own lab environment. How our lab looks, we will cover in this video. And in the next few videos, we're going to set it up together. Let's have a look. First of all, we have to choose a hypervisor. The hypervisor is a piece of software which allows you to run several operating systems on your operating system, which is then called the host operating system. So you got your hardware, the CPU, RAM, hard drive, SSD, your network interfaces, USB interfaces, you name it. And on top of that, you got your operating system, which will be the host operating system, which could be a Windows, a Linux, a Mac OS X, you name it. And on top of that, depending on the type of hypervisor, you have your hypervisor running. This could be a VirtualBox, a VMware, a Hyper-V, a KVM. There are several dozen hypervisors available. Some are free, some cost quite a bit. And on that, you can then install your operating systems you want to use in the lab environment. Could be a Windows 10, Windows 7, a Linux, even a Mac OS X with some hacks. And these operating systems are then called the guest operating systems. They're also sometimes called virtual PCs or virtual machines. It's all the same thing, guest OS, virtual PC, virtual machine. Don't let this terminology confuse you. There are two types of hypervisors. We got the type 1 hypervisor, which runs directly on the hardware. It's usually used in enterprise environments. It's faster and it's usually much more complicated to set up because of drivers and other issues. And there's the type 2 hypervisor, which runs on the host operating system. Usually it's really easy to set up, but it's also a bit slower. This diagram shows a type 2 hypervisor. Windows 10 Professional, not the home version, has got an integrated hypervisor called Hyper-V. Hyper-V is also used in professional environments in a Windows Server system. We also have, for example, Oracle VirtualBox, which is a free hypervisor, which is really easy to set up and use. VirtualBox is a type 2 hypervisor, as you see on this diagram. We are choosing VirtualBox for our lab because it's really easy and we don't need more features than Oracle VirtualBox provides for free. Also, VirtualBox is available for multiple host operating systems, Windows, Mac OS X and Linux. So this gives you a bigger opportunity to set up this lab yourself. For our lab, we're going to build a fictitious company called Acme Corp. Acme Corp will have two networks. One of these networks will be the Internet, which in fact is the NAT Internet access of Oracle VirtualBox, and the other will be the internal network, which will simulate the intranet of Acme Corp. We will have a router called Acme-Router, and the router will provide internet connectivity for all virtual lab PCs. Also, it will make sure that the lab PCs cannot interfere accidentally with your internal home network, because we're going to set up a DHCP server and you do not want DHCP traffic from our lab in your home network. We will have a primary server called acme-dc01. This server will manage the lab environment. It will have some key roles like identity services, DNS and DHCP, and in the future some other roles as well. For our case studies and experiments, of course, we're going to need some client PCs. We will call them Acme-Client 01, Acme-Client 02, etc. So, what kind of hardware do you need to run this lab? Of course, you need an operating system on your PC, which is supported by Oracle VirtualBox. Consult their website about that. I personally use Windows 10 Professional. At the very least, you need 16 GB of RAM. I suggest using 32 GB of RAM for future videos. I personally use 32 GB as well. At the very least, you need a 4-core CPU. As of this recording, I use an 8-core CPU from Intel, it's a Core i7. I suggest you use an Intel CPU for virtualization purposes. That's not because I don't like AMD, on the contrary, but for virtualization, in my experience, it just runs better and with fewer problems on an Intel CPU. You also need an SSD with at least 500 GB of free available storage. This lab will not run smoothly on an old hard drive. In the future, you might need even a little more than 500 GB of available storage. As of this recording, I personally use a 1 TB NVMe SSD for this lab. By now, you should understand what our lab looks like and what we're going to achieve in the next few videos. In the next video, we're going to download and install Oracle VirtualBox on your PC. Stay tuned, subscribe and ring the bell. See you next time.